Hi everyone, welcome to Aquatics by Nature. This week I thought I'd just give you a quick update on my current project, and that's to make this 28-year-old, no water change, no fertiliser aquarium even easier and as low maintenance as is humanly possible. As my regular viewers can probably see, I've now removed the vast majority of the stem plants, namely the ambulia and the guppy grass. Although by stem plant standards, these two are by far the easiest and the lowest maintenance, they're still the most work in my tanks. And as I have quite a few tanks, it adds up over a period of time. I have lots of other projects I want to do indoors and outdoors this year, so I really want to make sure all of my tanks are as simple and easy as possible. That way I should still have enough spare time to be able to regularly make these little videos for you all. Anyway, I hope you find this little pet project interesting, and we'll see how it follows along. Anyway, I'm actually really quite happy with this look. It kind of takes me back to how the tank used to be. It's a little bit sort of nostalgic for me, but I really think the simpler planting scheme, it somehow looks a bit more sort of sophisticated. It's certainly a bit less of a muddle and not quite so wild, and I think it's just that little bit more pleasing on the eye. It's a real sort of chill out zone for both me and the fish, well hopefully the fish anyway. But watching the fish recently, they certainly seem to be enjoying having a lot more swimming space. Although it's interesting that when they want to sort of chill out and sort of be fairly inactive, they actually tend to still congregate underneath the floating plants. That instinct of, I think, protecting themselves from potential predators from above seems to hook in where they're not quite so alert. Any of you who watch my How Low Maintenance Can You Go video will have heard me say that I've never run this tank solely using water lettuce for removing the waste products like nitrates, phosphates and other harmful things that build up in the water. I've always relied on some other fast-growing plants like the ambulia and guppy grass and used those in conjunction with the water lettuce. Anyway, I was sorting out some old pictures and bits of video and things actually in preparation for another video that I'd like to make, and I actually came across an old bit of video which shows that I have in fact done something quite similar before, albeit quite a long while ago. Anyway, the reason that I actually hadn't remembered this was that instead of water lettuce, I was actually just simply using common duckweed instead. And I should actually point out that duckweed actually works equally well at removing things like nitrates and phosphates, which is one of the main reasons that I'm able to run this tank without doing water changes. And you may actually remember me saying in a previous video that I had duckweed in this tank originally, and it actually died off suddenly after actually I started to put softer water into the tank just through top up, which allowed the TDS to drop. At that point, once the water got reasonably soft, the water lettuce took over and the duckweed literally just died overnight, which is hence why I still have the duckweed today. Interestingly, when you look at this old piece of video, which I'm sorry for the quality of it because it is a little bit old, but hopefully it'll give you some idea. But if you look at this video closely, you can actually see that the cryptocorenes, which are all the way along the front of the tank here, and then the Amazon sword, the green on the right here, and then the crinkled onion, the crinum here, were actually all growing quite a bit stronger at that period of time. They were all sort of quite a bit more vigorous. And actually finding this bit of video actually has got me wondering a little bit, because I'm actually wondering if having lots of ambulia and guppy grass that grows like crazy has actually been taking the sort of lion's share of the nutrients, maybe a little bit at the expense of the, let's say, the cryptocorenes, the onion and the Amazon sword. So I thought it was quite an interesting thing to sort of investigate. Certainly this tank is nutrient limited by the way it functions. I think a constant 0 nitrate and phosphate reading pretty much confirms this. Nonetheless, the tank is in a pretty good state of equilibrium. It just may be that the, say, ambulia and guppy grass were kind of the thing that was actually sucking up most of those nutrients. Anyway, I'm hoping that this may be a possible way of actually showing that it's possible to swing this equilibrium in a slightly different direction, i.e. to the plants that are now in the tank rather than the ones that I've just removed. Certainly be interesting to see if I get a sort of sudden increase in size on these plants. Although they are all doing really quite well at the moment, but I think we'll have to just sit and see what happens. Anyway, so that I can monitor the tank, I've actually just done a few water tests, just so I've got a sort of a benchmark so that I know after changing things that nothing is going downhill. So I've just done this nitrate and phosphate test, which as ever has come out 0. And I've also just done the TDS reading here as well, just so that I know exactly where things are, so I can keep an eye on things. And there's also a few other observations and things, and sort of little updates from when I've seen you last. I've actually started to do a little bit of playing around with plants. I don't know if you can see on the back of the tank there's a little green blob. Well, that's actually a little piece of spiky moss, which I'm hoping is going to attach to the aquarium background. It's actually rather unceremoniously pinned to the back with a drawing pin at the moment, but I'm hoping it's one of the mosses which will actually adhere naturally to tank backing, but I haven't actually tried this particular one before, so I'll have to wait and see. But it doesn't really matter because there's plenty of other mosses I know that will attach naturally, so if this one fails, then I can easily just try another one. But I would really quite like to try and reinstate the sort of moss backing that I had on the tank many years ago. I always liked it and it was very easy, so I'm going to attempt to do that one way or another. I don't know if you can actually see at the back right hand corner behind the Amazon sword, just sort of tucked around here, there's actually another cryptocorin, which is actually, it's only been there relatively recently. It's actually Cryptocorin walkeri legroi, which is actually a most wonderful chocolate coloured cryptocorin. I'm hoping that if it actually establishes and grows up, it'll make a really wonderful contrast to the green of the Amazon sword here, with the real chocolatey sort of background behind it. But it's always a little bit difficult to tell. When you have a tank that's this old and this well established, trying to introduce a new plant can be really quite difficult because there's so much competition from all the sort of really well established, well rooted plants. But so far, the last few weeks, it's growing quite well, and I think it's actually looking much happier now that it's sort of almost not totally shaded out by the ambulia and the guppy grass that used to be there. Some of you may also remember that when I changed over this little sort of project, as it were, I actually replaced the pump too, because the old one was a little bit old and weak. So the tank now has a little bit better circulation and a little bit better gas exchange. It's quite interesting the sort of reaction you get with some of the plants. Things like the Amazon sword, which I keep mentioning today on the right here, is definitely doing a lot better with that little bit of extra flow, and it's also getting a little bit more light as well. And I think also the sort of more open general layout of the tank helps, because the circulation itself is actually much better across the tank. And it's certainly putting up new leaves quite a bit more quickly than it was previously. And what's really nice is the new leaves are coming up with these sort of brown striations on the leaves, which is always not only attractive, but it's a really good sign that you've got a very happy Amazon sword. And it's actually quite interesting how fast things like the Amazon sword is able to grow this time of the year, because this time of the year this tank runs really quite cool. Because it's quite expensive to heat aquariums, I literally only keep the heater set around 70 degrees this time of the year, and then it comes up a bit warmer in the summer when the room temperature is actually warmer. But it seems quite happy and is doing rather well. But I think it also helps that it's a plant that's able to basically extract CO2 from the bicarbonates in the water, and I think the extra flow helps to bring that supply to the plant, and that enables it to grow that little bit happier. I think certainly the flow does help it, because I've actually got an Amazon sword in another tank which is much lower flow, and the sword is really quite unhappy. Interestingly, even the crinum, the onion here, seems to be enjoying the little bit of extra circulation too. And looking at that old video, it actually looks as though it's actually able to utilise CO2 from the atmosphere, because you get, when it gets really big, like in that video, the leaves are actually on the surface, and I think they're actually able to just take CO2 directly that way, which once again gives it that kind of aerial advantage and I think that's when it grows really at its strongest. Anyway, I'll keep you posted to how my conversion to ultra low maintenance is going, and hopefully next week I'll have a bit more spare time. I can be able to direct my attentions to hopefully another popular topic from your comments. If you'd like to know more about my naturally balanced, no water change, unfertilised aquariums, I'd be eternally grateful if you'd subscribe and give me a like. And if you'd like to support the channel and help it reach more people, please share as well. You can also check out my playlists, but most importantly, enjoy your aquarium. Don't be a slave to it. Thanks for watching.